Yeah, it's berries and twigs. So, have you can, I'm sure you already knew this, but you can go look at all the government contracts that they put out. Because you can look at it because you can put offers in on them. But you can also go back and look at all the inactive ones. So after we talked about the biolab thing yesterday, and Goose led me to the state government website and showed me the agreement signed between Obama and uh, Senator Lugar and Yushchenko of Ukraine with the biolabs that actually ends up being true. Shockingly, well, not shockingly, but I just didn't think I would end up believing it until then. I went and created a website. If you go to sam.gov, sam.gov, you can go create a entity and register your entity, and you can go and look at all of the contracts. So all the weapons contracts for the military, all that stuff. And it's pretty interesting, but I went on and I researched the gain of function stuff to see what kind of contracts the government was going to put out or has been putting out. And I want to say this first. So if you go on the state website, Russia has been putting a lot of propaganda out about the weapons of mass destruction. I talked about this the other day. And obviously I thought it was a joke. It's like, come on, is Ukraine really trying to get nuclear weapons? Now it seems like they may. But the whole biolab thing, I was like, why would we put biolabs in Ukraine? Of all places, right? So on the state government website, they have a note, and it says, the Kremlin is intentionally spreading outright lies that the United States and Ukraine are conducting chemical and biological weapons activities in Ukraine. We have also seen PRC officials echo these conspiracy theories. The Russian disinformation is total nonsense and not the first time Russia has invented such false claims against another country. Also, these claims have been debunked conclusively and repeatedly over many years. As we have said all along, Russia is inventing false pretexts in an attempt to justify its own horrific actions in Ukraine. The United States does not own or operate any chemical or biological laboratories in Ukraine. It is in full compliance with its obligations under the Chemical Weapons Convention and Biological Weapons Convention, and it does not develop or possess such weapons anywhere. It is Russia that has active chemical and biological weapons programs and is in violation of the Chemical Weapons Convention and Biological Weapons Convention. Finally, Russia has a track record of accusing the West of the very crimes that Russia itself is perpetrating. These tactics are an obvious ploy by Russia to try and justify further premeditated, unprovoked, and unjustified attacks on Ukraine. We fully expect Russia to continue to double down on these sorts of claims with further unfounded allegations. When I read that, now this is on the Department of State website. Think about how, when someone really fucks up, right? And you caught them, and you start saying, hey, you're doing this, and they like back against the wall, and they're like, I didn't do that. They did that, and they start blaming it, and like, listen to the terminology used in that statement by our government. It's almost, it's not even saying like, oh, there's a lot of misinformation out there, just be aware. It's not even like a typical government statement. Like, they flat out came out and said, the Kremlin is intentionally spreading outright lies, is the first statement. Okay. It says, the Russian disinformation is total nonsense and not the first time Russia has invented such false claims against another country. It's almost like a high school girl wrote this when they're in a fight with their friends or something. I don't know. It's not even that long of a statement. Let me see if I can copy and paste it in the Podbean. So you guys can look at like it's. I don't know why, but the terminology in this is just unbelievable. So this is it right here. And just read the wording. This is right off the government website. Meanwhile, the government contracts that they're putting out. It gets even better. I found one right here. And all I did was when I went to the contracts, I typed in either the National Institution of Health, the NIH, or the Department of Defense. And I typed in Ukraine. That's it. Here's one from July 28, 2021. And it's for the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, Cooperative Threat Reduction, Biological Threat Reduction Program. Proposes to procure without using full and open competition remediation commissioning endurance run and required training for the State Scientific Research Institute of Laboratory, Diagnostics, and Veterinarian Sanitary Expertise in Kiev, and the State Service of Ukraine for Food Safety and Consumer Protection Regional Diagnostic Laboratory in Odessa. This procurement action would occur as a modification of the CTR integrating contract. So what this is, though, is they were going in and going to make sure that all of these labs are basically cleaned up. And when I say cleaned up, I mean not like, sweeping the floor clean. I'm talking about making sure that all the illegal shit we're doing is now in compliance clean. By the way, this also has some classified information. The classified information is the amount of expenses for each particular activity they were going to do, but the total dollar amount was $3 million. $3,615,812 is what the revised expected total dollar value of this contract. Now, so they want to go in, they want to make sure that all of these things are, basically covered up and cleaned up, is what it sounds like. Then I found another contract. Let me find it here. So this one is about gain of function. Now, gain of function in the United States, there's a bill passed in 2014 that outlawed gain of function research. Now, that was waived in 2017. That expired, and now you can do it. I believe Rand Paul and a few other senators actually tried to pass a bill where it completely outlaws gain of function research. That didn't pass, but I do believe they outlawed gain of function research in China. So from 2014 to 2017, they were not allowed to do, they weren't supposed to be doing anything. However, there's another contract here that shows in 2015 that this is what it says. This is statement of work, so what you'll be doing. And it says conducting risk and benefit analysis on gain of function research involving pathogens with pandemic potential. Recently, the phrase gain of function research has come to describe studies that increase the ability of a pathogen to cause disease. The phrase gained prominence after two groups published findings demonstrating the highly pathogenic avian influenza H5N1 viruses with small number of engineered mutations could become transmissible between mammals by respiratory droplets. And it goes on to describe all that stuff. So they basically wanted someone to go in and study the risk of performing these studies, along with a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm going to post these links in the description when I upload the episode here. But it's very interesting that even when this shit was illegal, they were still funding, with taxpayer money, these labs. And then they go on their website and say, we don't own or operate any of these labs in Ukraine. Now, I have another thing here. This is from a university, so in Kiev, all right? It says there are 4,000 registered microbiological laboratories in Ukraine, but only 2 of them have a permit to work with microorganisms of the first pathogenic group. I don't even know how to say that word. Oh, pathogenic group. 402 have a permit to work with the microorganisms of the second pathogenic group. Maybe one of you guys know what the hell that means with the first and second pathogenic group. But what this also goes on to say is not only are these things operable, but they are doing this research there that Putin has accused the West of doing. And where are they getting this money? Ukraine is not a wealthy country. Ukraine is not even, it's a very poor country. They're getting this from us, from our tax money. We own and operate these sites.
Michael, I have a question.
Yeah.
Being that we know gain-of-function research is illegal, is that an international law, or are they selecting these sites outside of the U.S. specifically?
It's not illegal. It's not illegal anymore. It was only illegal between 2014 and 2017.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I learned that, right? I think now they passed something to where, or they were trying to make it illegal to do it in China and fund research in China. Now, Rand Paul, like I said, because I have the bill here, but it says it was only introduced, it wasn't passed. And this bill, proposed by Rand Paul, wanted to outright outlaw gain-of-function research. There's a lot of people that support the gain-of-function research. There's a lot of people that are opposed to it. And there's been a lot of argument on what the benefits are. But as far as I'm aware, between 2014 and 2017 is when it was not allowed. But the contract I just showed you to study the gain-of-function research was a 2015 contract. And then this article right here talking about, so this was written in 2012 with these laboratories. Okay, here we go. It says, this laboratory was constructed and technically updated to the BSL 3 level through a cooperative agreement between the United States Department of Defense and the Ministry of Health of Ukraine that started in 2005. The collaboration focuses on preventing the spread of technologies, pathogens, and knowledge that can be used in the development of biological weapons. And this is this is written by Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine. This is like a legitimate study, like a PDF study here, talking about this. And it says, HIGH-CONTAINMENT laboratories in Ukraine, local resources and regulations. And I found this last night after the show was over with. And it goes on to talk about how the United States and Ukraine are in cooperation with each other to do this kind of research. In 2012, this was written. So for our government to sit there and say, oh, we don't do this stuff, that is a bunch of fucking bullshit. Here's the thing. Maybe it is good. I don't know. But to come out and just outright lie. And then, if anyone did read, the note that I posted above on our state website, just complete, I don't even know there's a word for that as far as they just accuse everyone of being a liar. Like, they even use the word liar. It's not like, it's a lot of misinformation. They just said, no, they're outright lying. What kind of government says that? You only accuse people of being a liar if you know they're actually lying, or if you yourself is the one that's being caught for something bad. And that's what this is. It's pretty crazy, honestly. Now, I don't think I saw any contracts on this stuff between 2016 and 2020. The last one I saw, 2015, and the one in 2021. But it just goes to show, it really makes you think about this stuff happening over there. So I thought that was interesting, and last night when Chris was on, he didn't talk about any of this, Jester. He didn't really have the facts behind it. That's why, when I asked him, I said, hey, is there anything that we can verify to show that, the Bidens owned a house within, 200 miles of one of these places, like he said? And he couldn't give me anything. Is it true? I don't know, but if Joe Biden actually did own a home or Hunter Biden owned a home, there'd be a paper trail. And you know why I know there'd be a paper trail? Because today I went on Ukraine's, you can't access their government websites, by the way, because they're shut down. But they did have legislation that completely made all of that information public. Like we have our, tax assessor. You can go on and say, okay, who 1504, and, type in your address and it'll come up maybe your name and then how much you paid for the house, what you pay in property taxes, blah, blah, blah. Scooter says not in a blind trust, yes, but some reporter, especially with the scrutiny that the Bidens have had with the whole Ukraine thing, there are reporters out there that would have figured that out with the whole blind trust thing. I guarantee you they would have figured that out. That or a Ukrainian reporter or someone, you're talking about one of the most powerful people in the world. They would have figured that out, in my opinion.
So, Michael, think about this, though. Think about the idea that, you're talking overseas. I know things are working a lot differently over there. Records might be a little bit harder to find.
Mm-hmm.
But even still, if they've purchased properties over there, I highly doubt they would do it in their own names. They would put it under a foundation, like a nonprofit, right? Like
Yeah.
they would figure out a way to fudge this to where people couldn't figure it out.
And then with all the information that was supposedly on Hunter's laptop, there would be something in there. Like, I guarantee you they know where Hunter lived when he was over there working for Burisma. There's no doubt. They would know. And then you would have some kind of information and contact with him on other real estate or something that they own too. That's just the only reason I was skeptical. Was Hunter Biden involved with dealings over there? Absolutely. We know this. But to go in and start accusing someone, especially one of the most powerful people in the world, based on a conspiracy theory, oh yeah, Joe Biden owned a house, within 200 miles of one of these biolabs. And I'm like, what? First of all, what's the point? And second of all, there's going to be something that shows that. That's just my opinion. I can't stand Biden. But I'm not going to sit here and try to make up these conspiracy theories like he was last night and not have anything to back it up with. I mean, the guy said 25,000 soldiers went and raided the Vatican and assassinated the freaking Pope, and no one knew a damn thing about it. Come on.
Yeah, I'm not buying into that at all. I mean, that would make news somewhere. It would be being talked about. I understand they cover and they bury a lot of things deep down to where nobody could find them. But 25,000 guys, you got to feed those guys. They got to take shit somewhere. They need somewhere to sleep. You got to transport these guys.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you're putting all these guys on one commercial airliner and just sending them over there.
Exactly.
That's an operation for that many people.
He's saying, oh, well, the tunnels. Okay, well, where do the tunnels begin and where do they stop? Okay, if they go up to the Vatican, they've got to come out somewhere, right? That means you've got to have 25,000 people camped out at the entrances of these tunnels. You don't just mobilize 25,000 people undercover with no noise, no kind of commotion that's going to not wake someone up and be like, what the hell is happening? And then you don't just go in there and kidnap the Pope.
Also, well, listen, Michael, also think about this, though. Vatican Archives, that's one of the most secured buildings on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're not just going to come up through a tunnel and, pop out like Mario and Luigi and go grab the Pope.
Yeah.
Like, that's not going to be a thing, dude. That's a very secure facility, and you have to get certain clearances or have to have certain reasons to even go down into where Vatican Archives is. Like, if they're going to let the Pope ride around in this, like, bulletproof glass Pope-mobile thing, they're going to make sure whatever tunnels are coming in there are sealed off. Think about it.
So, yeah, no, I get it. So, AppCoder says, his sister's husband is in the Army, was just given orders. He's leaving next Wednesday for the region. He's actually a research scientist that specializes in chemical engineering. Now, that's pretty interesting. And AppCoder, if you want to call in, feel free, because this is what we're talking about, right? Now, he's that one. I think, and there could be two things. Could he be going into Ukraine? I don't think if he's in the military, I don't know if he'll be going into Ukraine. But they have been talking about how they think Putin's going to use chemical weapons. Maybe that's why he's going over there too. I don't know. I'm just saying it's just a whole weird situation. And I'm just saying that the whole biolab deal. Oh, he's going to a nearby region. I got you. So probably somewhere in NATO territory. But, you know, the guy called in, Jester, when we were bringing up the biolabs in Ukraine, and he said, ask him about anything, but I feel like we asked some good questions as far as what's going on with these labs, and he didn't really offer us any answer. I just gave him more, I read a few sentences, gave more information, realistic information than what he gave us.
I don't know, man. I mean, on one hand, I want to feel like the guy is being sincere and he's actually giving, correct information. But we kept asking direct questions and couldn't get direct answers. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, at that point, I'm just kind of taking it as like, okay, this guy's just maybe off of his meds. It's hard to tell. Yeah. But I look to see him again on other people's shows because I do want to listen, and I really hope him, Shannon, and Raccoon 6 do a show together. That'll be very entertaining.
Yeah, look, I'm skeptical.
And hopefully he shows up at Slacker 82 as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Look.
Absolutely, Eric.
I get skeptical about certain things. First of all, the stuff he was saying, why would I want that to be right? Why would I want that to be... I don't want that to be true. All the stuff he was saying. Why? I don't want this war to happen. I don't want that stuff to change. Why? Life's great. And then, to say that, this is what really got me. He said there really was no Dark Ages after the Roman Empire. There's about a 300-400 year period that's actually missing in there. And I'm like, realize that really wasn't that long ago. And I think I told you, Jester, but when you do the math, that was 4 or 5 people's lifetimes ago. And stories are passed down through generations. It's not just the government that keeps track of history. History comes from the people whose families lived through that as well. And there's 6 billion people on this earth, we would know what happened a few hundred years ago. It doesn't just go missing.
Well, Michael, they have a time machine.
Well, their time machine sucks if it's not hitting those time periods, all right? Come on. Let's be realistic. Time machine. Here's the other thing.
That's when he said that, dude. I didn't know how to interpret that. I wanted so bad, because being that I'm in the conspiracy theories real bad, I so wanted to believe this guy. I really did.
I know, but you also got to think about logic. Now, okay, I work in investments. And you have people that try to day trade in the market, and they try to predict the market. And usually they're wrong. All right? No one knows what's going to happen in the future. There's so many different things that can occur that changes the course of what's going to happen. So, if you said, okay, yeah, we have a time machine that took us back to the past, that's a little more realistic. But to say that we went into the future, that would technically be impossible for us. How do you do that? It hasn't happened yet. It doesn't exist yet.
Well, I think the only way you can go to the future is if you're from the future and then you go to the past, and then you could go back yeah, to the future.
Yeah, but he said that the time machine was created. He said the time machine was created back in the 60s. So it's not like someone came back here, showed us the time machine, and went forwards again. It was created in the past, and they said they were going in the future. It doesn't work, all right? He said, yeah, dark pools fuck the rest of us. But I'm sorry, there's a lot of flaws in what he was saying. And then to go on and say everyone's assassinated, come on.
Well, the whole thing about the time travel thing that kind of got me and threw me off is you're saying we have this technology, but the best thing you're telling me that came out of it is you got some pictures from the past. Like, we
Mhm.
didn't change anything, nothing was modified, but yet we have this technology. What the hell are we using it for?
Mhm.
And why? I mean, and honestly, like, if I had a time machine right now, going to the past or going to the future would be, it would kind of be two different things. It would either be go in the past to enrich my life, right?
Mhm.
Or make a change that would be great for humanity.
Mhm.
Or if I'm going forward, it would be to find out what mistakes I might make that I could avoid. Or what maybe I want to invest money in that's going to do well in the future. Right? That's the primary reason for having that. You don't go to the future to find out when you die. That's no fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. Just
So,
didn't make any sense. It was illogical.
um, he also talked about he went back in time and they went back with Lincoln and then Washington, right? The other thing too, he said they went back and he has pictures from the 1830s. When was the camera invented?
Ooh, it was in the 1800s. Well,
I think the Civil War was when they
I'm
first started taking
I'm in the
pictures.
Google machine.
Because I think the Civil War is the first like real pictures they have, maybe a little bit before that. I mean, I was thinking about that last time. I'm like, come on,
1816.
16, okay. He said they had pictures of something back then, 1830s or whatever, but you probably can't find that many photos from 1830.
That's a good point.
And then, another flaw, and we talked about this last night, when he starts talking about everyone was being assassinated, okay? I'm sorry, but Obama is not assassinated. And neither is Michelle Obama. Which is what he said.
Oh, it was everybody, dude. It was Hillary Clinton. It was all the Clintons. Chelsea Clinton. Now, when he brought up this thing about Chelsea Clinton, I remember going back and I don't know if it was a show I was listening to or where I found this out at, but so Chelsea was groomed by the government.
Mm-hmm.
Like as a child growing up, like watching your parents lie and be involved in all this crooked, shady shit, and running the country and all these weird dealings. They had to like groom her into being this compliant child,
Mm-hmm.
to never question anything and just do what she's told and to not have an opinion and not speak out of turn. I mean, she suffered a lot of psychological torture over the years. So why would you put that much funding into making her, America's, I don't want to use the word poster child, but for her to be this well-known person with these parents of great power, and you put all this time and effort into this, why would you do that just to assassinate them? Like it doesn't make any logical sense either.
Well, here's the other thing. Malia and was it Sasha? It's Malia.
Yes.
Is it Sasha, Eric?
Malia and Sasha, yes.
Yeah. They're real young. And they went to school. So they have friends. And I guarantee you they still have friends. I think they go to college now. Malia does. One of them. So you're telling me that her friends wouldn't realize that it's not them? Or that something happened to their parents? You're telling me, think about this. Your dad and your mom get assassinated and they have a body double raising you. You wouldn't know. And you wouldn't be upset that you're with some two weird people you don't even know. And you're going to school and college. And you're not acting any different, right? Come on. See, I think sometimes conspiracy theorists don't take human emotion into consideration a lot of times, and human behavior, and how people would respond naturally to something like this happening. Because Malia and Malia and Sasha were not always in the White House. We're not talking about someone who was born and, their parents have been the president or the king or the queen their entire lives, like the Queen, Elizabeth, right, who's been in that role their whole lives in the royal family. Like, they were only there for 8 years. Chelsea was only there for 8 years. Okay? Bush's daughters were only there for 8 years. Like, come on. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. I don't. think of the logistics behind doing something like that too, and making sure no one finds out. All this stuff. This guy says he knows a lot, and all these other people knows a lot. Yet the only source he gave to us, and when I asked for, like a paper trail or some kind of proof with the whole Ukraine and Biden owning homes in Ukraine, right? The only, and remember, we went back a couple times, Jester, and made him directly answer it. He said, well, I have my sources like with my military friends. Great. We all have a fucking friend in the military that could say they had secret information. Come on. That's like saying, oh yeah, well, I know a guy that knows a guy.
It's funny though. Sorry, I got distracted by the 1800s porn over here.
Oh my God.
So whenever you start getting into these conspiracies, though, I mean, that's kind of how that happens. Like, I know a guy that knows a guy. Like, we knew. Okay, so my biological father called me and told me about coronavirus, that it was coming to the U.S. in like, God, I want to say it was like October or November of 2019, before it was like really in our media, before it was really being talked about. I'm sure they already knew that it was coming in China, but the first outbreak, recorded one, wasn't even in. I don't even think it was in 2019. I think it was the beginning of 2020. But he somehow knew about this. I'm like, and I thought he was full of shit. I'm like, well, how do you know about this? He's like, dude, I know a guy and blah blah blah. And sure as shit, they were right.
What was it for again?
So, for coronavirus.
Yeah, but think about this. There's a pandemic every, I don't know, what, 6-7 years?
I mean, he specifically said coronavirus. He didn't say COVID-19. He said coronavirus.
Coronavirus has been around for SARS. The first SARS is a coronavirus. If you look on the cleaning materials, right? The freaking thing literally says coronavirus on it. A coronavirus is just a type of virus. It's a common type of virus. So that's a fucking shot in the dark. That's not a big deal. The last one, like you said.
Can't you let a blind squirrel just have a nut, dude?
No. No. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No.
And that gentleman that y'all talked about from your show last night, Jester, another thing that really struck me as very interesting is, he alleges that Donald Trump is actually, 4 years older than he actually is now, because suggesting that he was like born in 1942, if not 1944, when the Donald Trump we've known for practically most of our lives was born in 1946 here in the United States.
And he said Trump wasn't born here.
Also, and also suggested that Donald Trump is actually Jewish, and that his last name is...
No, he said he was German, not Jewish. I thought he said he was German, not Jewish.
Drumpf.
Let's see. I'm pretty sure Donald Trump's dad...
I'm not going to try butchering that name. What's that?
Donald Trump's dad was born in fucking New York, not Germany. Mm-hmm. Okay? Here's the other thing. His dad, I think, was in real estate before Trump was even born, which means people knew who the fuck he was before Trump was even alive. Come on.
Well, maybe he's talking about Trump's body double.
Then why the hell do I care if he's from Germany? Why do I care if his body double's from Germany? The hell does that mean?
I don't know. Maybe for him he thinks it's relevant. I don't know.
Look, I'm open to theories, okay? I'm open to ideas. When Goose came to me last night and said, hey, this thing's real, and I said, well, where are you getting it? Where's the treaty? He sent me the link, and where was that link from? It was from a United States government website that I could go back and track, and there are many articles going back to 2005 with actual proof and pictures of them there doing it. That is the kind of information. That is why now I'm on board with the biolab theory. That's the difference. But to tell me that Trump was born in Germany, the Obamas were assassinated, and the Pope was assassinated with 25,000 soldiers. First of all, why would they need 25,000 soldiers to go assassinate the Pope? All right? And, that's the kind of things I don't get behind. I like disproving this stuff. And it is frustrating, though, because it blurs the lines, again, it blurs the lines between what is true and what's not true. And so the biolab thing is true. But then a lot of people don't believe the biolab thing because you have a bunch of people out there saying that all this other crazy stuff is true. That's not. You understand what I'm saying?
And another thing I've also pointed out on last night, and I would also point it out again, the way I could tell if somebody is credible, I use, of course, the Juanita Broderick situation, whenever she did that interview with Lisa Myers, and the way Lisa Myers was able to determine if Juanita Broderick was indeed credible is, she did research on, her giving interviews to other parties and interviewing close personal friends of Juanita's, and the thing she found was that Juanita's story at no time never changed, and that's how she was able to determine the when she basically told Juanita, Lisa Myers did, the good news is you're credible, the bad news is you're too credible.
Mm-hmm. And let's look at this too. Now, he said that the military has technology. I knew that they have technology probably 10 to 20 years ahead of our time. That's normal. I think that we're well aware of that. That the military has things that we haven't seen yet. But he said, oh no, they got stuff 20,000 to 100,000 years ahead of our time. No. Maybe you captured the spaceship, of Area 51. Okay, we can play around with that theory, but you haven't been able to mass produce that. Okay, and second of all the people that are involved with something so crazy like the stuff that this guy was talking about, someone, or not just someone, multiple people would be out and talking about this. And then when it goes back as far as he said it went back, hundreds of years, he's saying that this goes back in time, it would have more than likely come out by now. I'm 100% positive with all the changes and crazy things that have happened in this earth, okay, that all that information would have spilt out by now. Because eventually we always find out about this classified stuff. Hell, we have defense doctrines that leaked to the New York Times in 1992, right after the Soviet Union collapsed, that was highly classified. Think about all the stuff that was leaked out with Trump in office. You're telling me that if Trump went and did something that, involved with all these crazy theories, that someone wouldn't have said something trying to get him in trouble or taken out? I'm sorry. No, I don't believe it. I really don't. And I've thought about it all day. I listened to him last night, and when you listen to it, it is interesting, and he sounded like a very intelligent guy. But I don't buy it, not one bit. And I think it does a disservice to our society only because you have real things like these biolab stuff, that there's a major war going on in Ukraine right now, and a lot of civilians are dying, and maybe this is one of the causes, but we don't see that now. It's bypassed, and you have our government on their website saying that it's all a flat-out lie, and it's not. It's actually public information. You just got to do a little digging. And it's funny because the same website that they're saying it's all a lie, they also have that treaty posted talking about how they're involved in it. Come on. They think we're stupid. They must think that Google and computers don't exist. By the way, that documentary, Ukraine on Fire, if you guys haven't seen it, it's a very good documentary. However, as of today, you can't watch it on YouTube anymore. Nope. They deleted it. And I don't know if you ever got a chance to watch that, Jester.
No, I haven't. I didn't get to see that.
So Oliver Stone made that documentary, by the way. And he went into Ukraine, did substantial research. He went and talked and interviewed Putin himself. By the way, Putin drives a car. Did you know that?
Well, I didn't think he was walking everywhere.
Well, our presidents don't drive. I don't think they're allowed to drive. You never see our president drive.
I think that there is like a thing where if the president can drive, if it's like for like a leisure thing on like a closed road, something like that.
Gotcha.
But I don't know. I don't know for sure.
I think I remembered hearing or reading a story somewhere about President Kennedy, like, prior to his assassination, that he had drove somewhere in Texas, but I don't know all the details about it.
Mm.
But I would imagine you, Michael, and you, Jester, would probably do a little bit of research on it to find out if there is any truth behind that.
Well, it doesn't take a lot of research to know that he didn't have much luck driving in Texas anywhere.
Damn, dude.
Okay.
I was gonna say he ain't driving no more.
And I
But
would
Mr.
imagine
T's
his,
right. I think Camp David.
Can't David Ground. He could do that,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, Eric. Go ahead.
but I would imagine, his Secret Service detail, President Kennedy's detail, would have known.
About him driving, absolutely, yeah. Well, they knew about him riding in the back of a freaking convertible car. What kind of stupidity does that take, right? Think about that. Now, it's not like we have never had... I've got an echo from one of you guys. I think it's Jester. It's not like we've never had...
I can mute myself.
It's not like we haven't had a president that's been assassinated before, right? Especially when shot in the back of the head. Oh, let's just let him, drive out of the city in a convertible. That takes a lot of brains. That's why I think. Now, the Kennedy conspiracy, you go listen to the mob talk about that, and I 100% think the mob is involved in that. 100%. And if you look back at who helped get Kennedy elected, the mob played a major role in that. And then you go look at the stuff that went on in Cuba that the mob didn't agree with, that didn't directly involve Kennedy himself, but his family. And they said that that is one of the reasons why he was assassinated. And the reason why the government won't admit to the mafia being involved is because it looks really bad to outside, like foreign countries, that the most powerful man in the world was able to be assassinated by a small group of gangsters inside of our country. Like, it looks really bad that we couldn't have deterred that, basically. I know Raccoon's going to comment on this. What's up, Raccoon?
Not much. I just got done listening to tonight's thing on X-22. I don't know if you've ever watched it or listened to it.
No. What's that?
Well, it's basically a news podcast that comes from one guy who runs X-22. His name is Dave. I don't know. I can't remember what his last name is. But he's been on for at least 3 years, maybe 4. And everything I have told you, he brought it out tonight for the first time.
With
everything.
So, earlier I asked you if you had heard of, let me go back and read the actual name of this place. It is the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, DTRA. I think you said you hadn't heard of it.
No, I haven't heard of it. Of course, I was never into going after a government contract anyway or anything.
Well, this is just like a military part of our government, so it's out of the Department of Defense.
I know.
Yeah, and so I just didn't know.
You don't understand how much crap you have to go through to get those, because you have to compete really hard to get those government contracts.
Yeah.
Unless there's something that somebody just don't want to do.
Yeah. Well, so I just and like I said, I went on and I created a profile on here, and you had to kind of finagle your way in, but it's not very difficult, right? And you can go and look at it. I mean, I looked at the weapons contracts that they want to send to Ukraine. They have another big contract for heavy transportation going over to Europe, right? That's all the stuff that we're sending over there, that $13 billion or $16 billion, whatever it is, of aid, tanks, weapons, whatever it is. They contract on the transportation, flying. By the way, if you're a pilot involved in that, $9,000 a month. So the reason I asked Raccoon is after the episode yesterday, when Goose showed me the actual, treaty or agreement signed between our government and Ukraine about these biolabs, I went and started doing some research. And So gain of function was only illegal between 2014 and 2017. That period of time, you weren't allowed to do anything, but it was over with after that. Now, just last year, or the year before,
go back.
Good,
Mike. You have to go back to the agreement that was signed in '93.
Do you know what it's called,
UN
or who
all
did it?
countries in the UN. They're not supposed to be making anything like they've been doing here recently.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's so many stipulations. The Nuremberg Agreement overrides all the agreements that these people want to play with because they always make a way to skirt a system with the new law. But the Nuremberg Agreement says it will never happen again, and the country signed on to it. And now we have in excess of 230 labs scattered around the world just from the U.S. Okay.
Yeah. So
13 of them have been found in Ukraine right now, and every one of them has gain of function, and some of the stuff they were working on can't be brought to light yet because of how hideous the crap is.
So yeah, well, so what I'm saying is what I was looking for in these government contracts, what I wanted to find when I think it was you that brought up the patents that Fauci has, right? And I think it was you or something. Yeah. So I was on the patent office and ended up at the NIH website because I wanted to see what kind of funding Fauci was getting, like where this money was paid to. And due to the Freedom of Information Act, you can submit a request to get all that information. So I was going to go in and submit a request to the NIH. And when you're going to submit the request, they go through a bunch of steps. Obviously, they're trying to make it like a process, right? But I ended up getting to the website on these contracts, basically. So I just created an account as whatever, sam.gov, sam.gov. And I've, pulled it up. I mean, you can go and research all the contracts. Military, the stuff they're doing on War Dogs, right? With all the weapons contracts. Yeah. That's like similar to what they're doing. And I looked up gain of function. I looked up Ukraine and the Department of Defense or the NIH. And I found one in 2015 and then another one in July 28, 2021. Both of them, the first one in 2015 during that illegal period, is looking for someone to go in and go through all the benefits of gain of function research and, how it can be done and safely and all that stuff. So they're obviously looking at how to do this. And then this one last year is paying $3.6 million to go in and make sure that these facilities in Ukraine, in Kiev, in Odessa, and a few other places are basically all cleaned up, make sure there's no illegal things going on and that it's compliant with the WHO. But it makes you wonder if they're involved and have been doing the right things all along. Why are they going to go and spend money for someone to go in there and audit themselves before the WHO goes in there and audits them? Or knowing that Russia may be going in there to audit them as well. Just makes you think, right?
Yeah, the Russian thing, though, is not what you think it is. He wasn't going to go in there and just say, okay, let me look at your books, okay?
No, but he was going to take control of them. But he's also going to take control of them.
No, Mike. He is trying to expose this. And the exposure really looked really bad for the UN this morning when they had the Security Council and the Russian representative there trying to show these people the information and the evidence that they had, and you know what they did?
What's that?
They declined to see the information, and they declined to have the evidence added into the record.
Say that again, though.
Think about that for a minute.
So go back about when. Okay, say that again because I just got. I'm sorry. Restate that.
Okay. They went to the representative went there from Russia to show them what they have already accumulated and what they had went through to see what was there because they wanted to make sure they had the information. the UN Assembly would not allow it to be brought into evidence or to be put on the record of what that information was. They didn't want to look at it. They didn't want to hear about it. So what is it? If you think about that, what are they trying to do? Are they just trying to say, well, no, that don't make no difference? Or are they going, holy shit, this really goes further than we wanted it to go, and now everybody's going to be paying for this one? Because, yes, they are our labs, but you also have to remember what I've been saying.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why Ukraine was never brought into the UN, the EU, or the UN, see, NATO, UN, and EU wouldn't touch them because it goes against the damn Nuremberg Agreement, the Geneva Convention about making and using and experimenting with biological agents, both of those topics, plus the 1994 agreement to not be doing that crap.
So
right after they opened up the Ukrainian government to doing all kinds of crazy stuff.
So let me ask you this, though. But do you think that justifies Russia to go and invade Ukraine?
Yes. What makes you what?
Well, I'm asking because
what makes you think that they're not doing it for the betterment of man?
Mm-hmm.
They ain't got nothing to gain from it. Jesus Christ, they got the largest country in the world.
Mm-hmm.
They got resources out the yin yang. They don't need Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. And do you
but
think
most of the people in Ukraine already said, we don't want Ukraine to govern us.
Mm-hmm.
They're crooked. They're corrupt. We can't get anywhere. Just like every other damn country that's involved in the UN and the daggone NATO, they're basically living squalor compared to other places in the world. A lot of people live in squalor, and they're tired of it. And when this thing blows over, and I told you it'll blow over before the end of the month, you watch.
Mm-hmm.
It'll blow over, and then, boom, China jumps on Taiwan.
Mm-hmm.
And boom, what do you think the U.S. is going to do? Not a damn thing, because right now, look at all the equipment they sent over there.
Mm-hmm.
Look at all the combat troops that are sitting there, and nobody's done a damn thing.
So that's interesting.
The military doesn't want to go into it, but they can't make it look like a coup over our own government.
Mm-hmm. So
they know this is screwed.
Our military does, you're saying?
Our military is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
The damn Nazis are over there shooting people. They showed a crater on TV, or not TV, but on one of the news organizations I go to, and they were pointing out something. You know, did you hear about the hospital that got bombed?
Yeah, I did. The children's hospital.
Did you see the pictures involved in it, or did you just
hear?
No,
I didn't want to look at it,
newscast?
Honestly.
Okay, well, if you look at the newscast and see the pictures, a woman goes running across the parking lot, and what do you think's off in the background?
I don't know. What?
Somebody got their grill out cooking.
I will.
They show a crater. Right next to that crater is a little white shack. A white shack now. Bomb goes off.
Mm-hmm.
That little white shack is still standing. And not one damn window is blown out of any of the buildings. Don't that sound kind of odd? How about the fact that they called the people to an organization in our own government and told them, okay, you guys are going to be putting out this information and don't be putting out anything else. So we've been brought out to limelight.
Mm-hmm. So I did see a video of this. I don't know if anyone else saw this. It was a little odd to me. Maybe the car was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But there were two tanks, a Russian tank and a Ukrainian tank. They weren't tanks, but they were armored vehicles that, and they're going at each other, right? And the one's backing up, trying to maneuver towards that, or away, but still towards, and pointing at the Russian vehicle. Russian vehicle speeding straight ahead.
Yep.
A white car, like sedan, drives by both of them. It was speeding, but drives by, and this Ukrainian vehicle just lights up the Russian one, right? And I'm like, it was like almost like nothing else acknowledged that this was going on in the video. Like you had two tanks going at it, and the car's just driving in the. You would imagine the car wouldn't even be in the lane. He's just trying to get out of there. Doesn't matter, right? No, he's in the proper lane driving. That's his thing. And they're letting off whatever rounds they are. They weren't tank rounds, but they were still bigger rounds. But, and
a lot of this is basically eyewash, Mike, because nobody in their right freaking mind is going to wear an armband in a combat damn area. I don't care what you're saying. You don't do that crap. Wearing a bright colored armband on camouflage uniform. Why?
But now let me ask you this, though, because I was wondering, maybe you can tell me, our uniform and the Iraqis' uniform, two completely different things. Okay, just like the German and the Americans and the Japanese and the Americans, two different things.
Every country's got a different,
But the Russians,
every country's got a different pattern.
But Russia and Ukraine's is very similar, very similar. So wouldn't you need some way to? I mean, at that point, I feel like if it's that bad, it doesn't freaking matter anyway. You just don't want to get shot by your own people.
Two things that stick out really good.
Mm-hmm.
One, Ukrainians and the Russians both sew on a flag of their country on them.
Mm-hmm.
And two, the Ukrainians are using American-style helmets. Russians are using Russian-style helmets.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're in a combat zone and you don't know the difference, guess what?
What?
You ain't going to be around very long, because once you shoot up your buddies, they're going to fire you up.
Yeah.
Okay, that's just a part of war.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of this is eyewash. A lot of these people, like the hospital survivors, that stupid hospital, Mike, it was evacuated in February 17th. February 17th. Did they get a freaking notice to get everybody out of there so they could start screwing it up and getting it looking like a movie set? There was no babies in that hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about the neonatal intensive care and all this other shit. There wasn't any pregnant women or any women with babies in that hospital when they evac anything out. It's all been a freaking show. And the reason for it is on account of those people don't want them goddamn politicians running the country, because they're tearing it up. They want Russia to come and basically save them. Because, Russia is not a communist country anymore. And people sit there and they screw around throwing labels.
Mm-hmm.
You know what Russia is right now?
Confused.
A developing republic.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like what we used to be back before they sold us out.
Mm-hmm.
I got a question for Raccoon.
Good.
Huh?
Raccoon, do you know, we were talking to a gentleman last night named Chris Wilson. Do you know this guy?
I think he said you called into a bunch of shows that he's been on. Didn't he say that, Jester?
Yeah.
I get in a bunch of shows. I mean, I can't put a
Dark Outpost, something like that.
Show on the name.
A Dark Outpost, I think, or something like that. Was one of them. Usually mid afternoon. Guy claims to have written 8,000 essays on alternative history and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Very, very smooth talking, sharp sounding guy. He was an army guy, helicopter pilot. He
Anybody see his driver's license?
no, he did. He said he didn't. He said he didn't. That was not his real name.
I sat in the co-pilot's chair. I sat in the co-pilot's chair one time, but I have no idea how to turn the damn thing on.
That's funny.
The Chris Wilson gentleman that y'all are talking about, by looking at his Podbean profile, the 3 shows that he follows are that Kilted Christian podcast, which I've looked in that podcast under like a guest account, and that they get probably about 30 to 40 listeners, and then this Right On Radio podcast, which has got a little over 52,500 followers, and Freedom Warriors, Freedom Fighter podcast.
So the Kilted Christian one, I'm blocked.
I've seen that on the Podbean Live.
Yeah, so I'm blocked from that one. I'm blocked for that one because one day he was going on about something with the stock market that was just completely 100% bullshit. And I was commenting on it in the comment section, and he blocked me. So that guy's full of a bunch of fucking shit, at least when it comes to talking about the economy and the stock market.
It's a QAnon-themed podcast.
I don't care what it is. There are certain things, no matter what conspiracy theory or whatever you follow, there's certain things that just work the way they work. Like like you ride a bike by turning the pedals, right? There's just certain things that work no matter what that you can't deny. And he was denying those concrete principles of how certain things worked, and I was questioning that, and he didn't like it and just blocked me. So,
well, the one thing I can say, Mike, is if you want to see my credentials, I can show them to you. Mm-hmm. Most people won't even go that route.
Well, we weren't questioning him, and I didn't. Damn sure I'm questioning you. Yeah,
I'm just saying. What I'm saying is, the guy claims to be a helicopter pilot. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't have his helicopter wings on his background. Mm-hmm. I'd be pretty damn proud of him, considering not very many people have those.
Yeah,
but that's just me.
And here's where
I wear my jump wings all the time.
And here's the thing, Raccoon. You probably would like you probably. I think he says you have listened to him, or not him, but shows he's been on, right? Because he knew the name Raccoon 6 when we brought it up. So I know you've heard him, right? And you listen to those shows, and you obviously are interested in those shows.
Most likely I have.
Yeah. And so...
Yeah, I did.
But the problems I had with him, and like what he was going on about last night, is when I would ask him questions, and I wasn't asking him like complicated questions about the theories he had. I was asking him about where he gets the information to come up with those theories, right? Whether I agree with you or not on some of the stuff you say, if I will give you the credit, like... You'll still point me in a direction on where you got the idea from, right? Like where you researched it. You're not saying my buddy in the military told me and that's it, right? There has to be something else because everyone's got a fucking buddy in the military that tells them something. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. That's just hearsay. When we were asking him last night, he didn't have any concrete stuff that I could go to. He didn't even have someone's BS blog for me to go read. He says, now at the end, before the episode quit, I tried to ask him where I could go read his essays, and I didn't get a chance. Maybe if I see him again, I'll be able to ask him, but there was so much, and we spent the whole first 30 minutes, questioning a lot of the stuff he was saying, and the only reason I'm questioning it is because, finally last night, when the biolab story came out, I didn't even read the article because I was like, with all the COVID stuff that happened, of course people were going to say this stuff of what's going on in Ukraine. When Goose came on and pointed me to the actual agreement showing that this stuff exists off of our own government's website, then I'm like, okay. Then I went on and started, and I went and found the government contracts. I found the link I posted in here, posted by, the universities and stuff over there in Ukraine, and it all is legitimate and everything. Got it. That's what I'm looking for, right?
Yeah.
That's how you confirm these theories. But when you start going off on, and you throw something that's just completely crazy into it, like I was saying before, that's what blurs the lines on what's real and what's fake. And that's why when you have maybe Tucker Carlson comes on with Tulsi Gabbard the other night and brings the biolab story up, you have everyone else that's discrediting it because they're just saying that he's going along with everything that these conspiracy theorists are saying. Because the same conspiracy theorists that are wrong 90% of the time and are taking the real information and mixing it in with all the bullshit, right? That's what discredits it. In fact, I think that a lot of the confidential stuff that's not necessarily confidential, but it's just stuff that the government don't want you to really look too much into it.
Yeah.
They are more than happy with people going and diluting that with other crazy theories on top of it that, you know,
that's just so it makes it look like a bunch of bullshit. But
exactly.
see, what I've been saying for the last 3 weeks now is now coming out all across the damn board. And you can look at anything from today and you can look at it. And like I said, I drove you to the X-22. That's tonight's report. He hasn't reported anything like this. And tonight he has literally confirmed every damn thing I've been trying to put out to people about this Ukrainian bullshit. Okay? He was 2 months behind me when I told everybody about the screwed up things about vaccinations and the goddamn virus because I studied this shit. Okay, people thought I was nuts. They said, "Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. You're nuts. You don't know what you're talking about." Now they're all sitting there going, "Geez, I tried to listen to you, but it just didn't sound right." Because most people in our country and around the world have been programmed to a certain level of thinking. Okay, you only look at these things and nothing else, because if it's not on TV, if it's not on YouTube, if it's not on Facebook, if it's not on DuckDuckGo or whatever, it ain't true. Okay? But the information is there, and they have to tell us. It's part of the game. They have to tell us what they're going to do. Whether it's 2 days ago or 25 years ago. They've been telling us through movies forever. They're trying to desensitize you to aliens. They're trying to show you that Captain Kirk actually had the first flip phone, but he didn't, because they showed a flip phone back in 1918. And guess who invented that damn thing?
Who's that?
Tesla. Nikolai Tesla.
There's a
that
lot.
Was the thing that was going to come around.
There's a lot of things that are out there that we don't know about. We know this, right?
And because we've been dumbed down, Mike. Maybe I hit my head too many times on the ground when I was jumping. Okay? But when I got out of high school and went into the Army, that's when my mind opened up and said, I got to find truth to this. I got to find the truth to that. And one thing I learned when on the first 2 weeks in the military, I asked my platoon sergeant, my drill sergeant, I said, "Drill sergeant, tell me how to get around regulations." He said, "Well, that's easy. When they say you can't do that because the AR such and such, tell them, I don't want to know which one tells me I can't do it. Tell me which one says I can do it." And I used that for 22 years. And I'll tell you what, I never got turned away. Because that made them scratch their head and go, what the hell is he talking about? There's an AR we haven't heard about? And they start looking around and shit, But I was getting results done.
But let me ask
you. And I learned everything by getting in with these people throughout our damn government agencies and shit. They're not the high-ranking people, but they're in the know. And if I put one guy's name out, they'll probably track him down to everybody else. Just for a simple fact that we all know each other.
Here's where the reason I get skeptical, okay, is you had to find these theories somewhere, right? Either someone saw it or you read about it or something, okay? But the human imagination is also very, very, very unique as well. All right? We can make shit up in our head and think shit happened or will happen that is just unbelievable. That's why you have, what are they, pathological liars, right? That end up truly believing they did something that they never did.
Yeah.
You know, they change the story and they say it so many times in your head. Think about it. You've heard, okay,
That's Operation Mockingbird. It's been going long since the damn 50s.
You're muffled.
Tell a lie enough, it becomes the truth. But what I've been saying is,
Raccoon, you're muffled.
look right now, you see it happening.
Raccoon, you're muffled.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Uh-oh. Oh, how's that?
That's way better.
Must have hit my
you're
finger.
There
I'm
you
holding
go.
my phone. I'm holding my phone. I had my finger over the mic.
Yeah, no, you're good. But what I'm getting
Okay.
at, though, with that, because I agree, and what I'm saying is that when, you're right, the TV can do it to you, maybe the government can do it to you, but we can do it to ourselves. And you
Yeah.
know that, right? Like, we can easily do it to ourselves, and I think that some people do it so much to themselves that it just, you know, that's why I want the verification of certain things, right? I want, where did you get this information? What led you to think this way? Okay? And even if it's an opinion, like with last night with Ball talking about flat Earth, when we got on the flat Earth debate, okay?
Yeah.
As crazy as that theory is to me, he at least backed it up, you know, presented where he got his information and his ideas from. He tried, you know, he presents some sort of science that he believes backs it up, that can be interpreted as such, right?
Plausible.
Yeah.
Yeah, plausible.
That's, you know, I'm okay with debating that. I'm okay with being open to something like that. But to come in there, anyone, okay, and just start going off saying, you know, Putin's blowing Ukraine up because Zelensky's a pedophile raping kids. Well, where are you getting that from? Because that has to be recorded somewhere. You know what I mean? Especially when you're talking about a major war going on, like you know, and something as big as what's going on. If that is happening, then there has to be something that's backing that up. Whether it's happening or not, I'm just saying. You see where I'm getting at, Raccoon, right?
Okay, Mike, let me ask you something here now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What are you going to think when all this comes out and it's all been shown to you? Are you going to deny it or are you going to think about it? Because anywhere our U.S. government gets into trading money with foreign countries, since the politicians are the only ones that can do it legally, they've been raking in trillions of dollars over the last 40 damn years.
Well, I don't that. And when it comes to money,
And we've been holding the bag.
Look, I'm very open to when it starts coming to money, okay, and how things work with that. Here's like the conspiracy theories I think about, okay, that are plausible to me right off the bat. Now, I know the deeper ones and the larger ones, I'm not discounting those. The ones, though, that I think about that are, yeah, that is more than likely happen, are the ones that are like, you know, I've said before, okay, you had, leading up until this, Putin starts mobilizing hundreds of thousands of soldiers over to Ukraine, okay? We know that he has been backing separatists in that region, and that he's been pushing the civil war since 2014, back and forth, okay? We know that we have had a huge hand in implementing government over there, just like Putin has, okay? It's gone back and forth. Like this little fight in Ukraine, proxy war, has been going on for a long time between the United States and Putin.
United States was involved in the fall of Hungary and split up into 3 countries.
Yeah, all that. And so when it gets to where we're at now, right? Putin mobilizes those soldiers, and Putin sends a list of demands over to Biden saying, hey, we're going to invade, or I don't know if he flat said we're going to invade, but he said, look, we want this. Here's our demands, and they ignore it. And he keeps, you know, after Afghanistan happens, he ramps up what he's doing in his activity over there. And then all of a sudden, you know, like December, we really start hearing about how this could be a problem. And what is that? What happens now? We keep having these meetings every day in January. Basically, we hear about how there could be an invasion, and Biden and everyone, they're meeting with Putin. They're trying to get this thing worked out, right? My conspiracy theory starts with, well, inflation in the United States is at an all-time high. And I say all-time high because I actually heard something very interesting tonight, and it makes sense. The CPI is calculated, which is the Consumer Price Index, guys, is calculated a little bit differently than it was back in the 70s and 80s. So where inflation was like 15% back then, or whatever it was, even though ours is at 7.9% right now, it's actually way higher than what it was back then. And it's still going up.
Yeah.
Gas prices are going up. Gas prices didn't start going up when this started. Gas prices were going up since the beginning of last year. Okay, I was paying $3.30 a gallon, and in 2019 I was paying $2.10 a gallon.
When Biden got in there and signed a bill in to shut down the Keystone Pipeline to give the gas producers time to start ramping up the prices.
And
those prices are also controlled by who? Congress, because they control all commerce in the United States.
They don't directly control it, but they have strong influence. This goes around
so many things, Mike. This goes around so many things, Mike, because a lot of these agencies, the heads of these agencies we have here in the United States, I'm talking about most of the top ones. There's a few that probably aren't involved in the really bad shit because they've been told, or they told their bosses, no, I'm not getting into this. I'll take this job over here and you can put somebody else in my place. Because everything comes around as blackmail, bribes, or influence. Those are the three keys that do what has been done to this United States, because those people are our servants. We're not their servants.
Yeah.
We pay them to song and dance us with what we want to hear, not what they want to hear. And when this is all coming out, you're going to see that the shit is going to roll uphill because all them people at the top are involved in it with the lobbyists who want to get in on the action or to change some laws. And you got people right now who have been involved in crimes against humanity at local levels, enforcing a mandate. Well, you can't prosecute the government for a mandate because a mandate is nothing more than a suggestion. So they're saying now that you went with the mandate, you give consent to have an inoculation, so we're no longer can be held responsible for that.
Well,
who's got their blood on their hands?
Yeah. But even in taking that into consideration too, all that, right? And like you said, so basically they've done stuff wrong, okay? And then leading up into where we're at now, okay, with these negotiations with Ukraine and Putin, okay? I 100% think that the Biden administration, they went over the demands and they came back to Washington and said, here's what we're going to be okay with accepting. And it probably wasn't very much. I guarantee it was not very much. It was, I think the only thing they came out openly and said that they were willing to offer was to back our military off of the eastern NATO border there when they do military training. And that's it, right? That is the only thing we really offered. And I guarantee you they said, we'll give them this. We'll give them a little bit of an inch. If they accept it, great. There's no invasion. We don't, necessarily may not want the invasion. But if they don't, which they more than likely won't, and they go and they do invade Ukraine, we can completely turn the narrative of what the society thinks about us and this administration leading into midterm elections. Because now it's all about how Putin and Russia is responsible for the rising cost of everything. And they completely ignore the fact that this shit has been fucking going up, okay, at record levels far before anyone knew about what was going on right now. but they're going to engrave it in our brains for the next 8 months, or until we go to vote, and even through the primaries right now that are starting, but really up until November, and they're going to drag this thing out whatever they can. Come on. The only reason, look, I am 100% against getting involved with soldiers, and I'm 100% against shutting the airspace down. We shouldn't be shooting down Russian jets. The United States shouldn't. But as far as giving Ukraine jets, 1980 jets too, that are MiGs, that are fucking Russian jets, we're giving them everything else. Hell, I think the Russians would rather the Ukrainians have MiG-29s than they would them having the freaking javelins to shoot that shit down.
Yep.
But we're giving them weapons anyway. You might as well give them the jets. But they won't. Why? They want to drag this shit on. They want it to cost Putin.
What?
They want it to cost Russia, but they want to drag this shit on.
They want to drag it on, Mike, but what they're trying to do is they're trying to throw a Hail Mary pass to get everybody behind them. And a lot of the countries over there said, no, we're not playing this crap. We're going to set off the side and watch you guys do it. And they got to do it. Our government has to do it to save face with the daggone crime cartel that runs the planet. Okay? And I know
You're muffled. You're muffled. You're muffled. You're muffled. Raccoon. You're muffled. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
You're all right.
Hand slip. The whole point of this is the United States is in debt. We don't even have any money right now. They can't even borrow money because they haven't performed the way they're supposed to. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So they're basically going off of whims and wishes right now. They ain't passed a damn law that really amounts to anything for the past 8 years. But here's the killer. When the head people who controls the money tells the United States government to sit up and beg, the government sits up and begs for more money. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The Rothschild Banking Institute owns all the central banks, and including our Fed, which really doesn't amount to much, but a bunch of spongy little bankers who owns the banks here in the United States. But the key to it is our government has screwed us so bad, they can't have Ukraine go under communist or Russian control or whatever you want to call it, because they will light the world's lights up with what's going to go on. And everything we're seeing over there can be debunked in less than 5 minutes. You see something on there, you can find something that's going to show you that that's not right. That didn't happen. Those people that are right there, they were in another one. Like the school shootings here,
Mm-hmm.
we had a bunch of crisis actors. They got the same crisis actor shit over there. The crisis actor brigade are being called. They're running from catastrophe to catastrophe, getting their pictures. They may have a different jacket on, but you can see their faces. They may still even have the same color shirt they had on the last time. But some people will say, oh, that's just a coincidence. I'm here to tell you right now, there is no such thing as a coincidence. It's a made-up term to confuse people. Okay? Coincidences do not happen.
What about luck? Do you believe in luck?
Luck is one thing that you can look at as what actually happened. Was it luck? What is luck? Luck isn't nothing more than somebody's determination that they are still here, or they got something done and they didn't think they were going to be able to do it, or something happened that didn't think they were going to live through.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was the hand of God saying, hey, quit screwing up. I'm only going to give you one more chance. Okay? But here in our world today, it should be very obvious to everybody Nothing is impossible. And 90% of the information most likely is wrong for a reason. To keep you dumbed down because knowledge is a power and the power is a weapon. That's why I was pointing out this one thing. I got it right here. It's, if you want to look at it later on or somebody wants to look at it, it's called X-22 Report, episode 2723. It's tonight's episode. And people who have heard me on here for the last month, you'll be able to relate to every damn thing they're talking about, except for his commercials. But it's there, and they're showing it, and it's coming out, and they're pointing it out. And people are scrambling right now. When Putin can't get somebody to listen to the evidence he has, what's the coincidence? There is no coincidence. They know they're screwed. They know it. And they can't do a damn thing about it because our own military ain't even going to get into the battle. They don't want to get their people killed. The politicians could care less. They put restrictions on how you can shoot at somebody and when you can shoot at somebody. Are you getting in a firefight, but you can't fire back? You got to call in for permission. It takes a half an hour. Shit, in 5 minutes, everybody's going to be dead. So fire them up, boys. Do it. But deal with it later. And then they do, and somebody gets thrown under the bus. It's like every other instance.
I want to say
the seal.
Yeah. So like Shannon says, China's been secretly buying up real estate. It's not really secret. Like, it's well known that they do that. They've been doing it in Australia too. It just hasn't been made a big deal. That's the difference. It's not secret. Like, we know this stuff goes on. Secret would be like when we built the SR-71 and we needed a special titanium to build the plane, and only Russia made that metal. So we had to make shell companies, and layer them and buy little bits of it at a time, so they never realized that it was going to us. That's secret. But as far as the real estate, like, China invests in companies here. China buys real estate and invests. Like, that's no big deal. Just like, that's why, if we wanted to, we could pause and freeze those assets, sanctions-wise, just like we did with Russia. That's why we were able to have so much influence on the Russian economy, Shannon, with these sanctions, because we are aware of the assets that they hold in the country. I think you could even make the argument, and I'm sure this happens, they kind of encourage these countries to come and buy assets in the U.S. and invest here, so they can have that leverage if that time came. And same goes for them, right? The problem is when you overdo it, but either way, they're still doing it on U.S. soil. So they still have to abide by the laws of the United States government, which means the government can shut that shit down whenever they feel like it. And that's what they run into.
Unless they pull out the diplomatic immunity card.
But that would have to be agreed on between the two countries, right?
Huh?
What do you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, like if you're saying they committed like a crime here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's different.
If they come over here and say, hey, we're shutting you guys down, you're not getting any more.
Yeah.
If they visit those shell companies and follow them around and find the heads that are actually buying this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If they did anything to get information out, like basically beat the crap out of somebody, all they got to do is pull out the diplomatic immunity card that they got from their own government and say, hey, I got diplomatic immunity. You can't touch me.
Yeah, I don't know why Crunk... Who is it? Is that Eric Green? Saying, I only made myself look like an ass. How'd I make myself look like an ass?
I don't know why he's talking
about. I don't know.
Yeah, that is Eric Green. That's who that is.
So... And Shannon's in here now, and Shannon, you can call in as well, because we were talking about Chris Wilson earlier. So feel free to call in, and you can hear my skepticism on all that. No, you didn't have to toss him, John. Eric's cool. He's all right. You didn't have to toss him, poor guy. That's all right.
I don't think Eric realizes what he says while he's saying it.
Oh, we know that.
Right.
We knew that after your
And
show last night.
I think there's a lot of
I
jokery
think that
while
Eric
he's
Green
saying
guy's
stuff.
not in his right mind.
Yeah. He's all right. I mean, it's fine. John got rid of it. It doesn't make a difference. But yeah, he's no harm though. He's no harm. Kind of funny, a little bit in his own way. Amazon and Microsoft have 53% control of the internet in the world.
Like child's play, Eric Green does.
Yeah. When and should they want to shut down system, it's a flip of the switch. Yeah. You're right, App Coder. That's where we need to have issues, and we need to have some regulation, right? Because look at Parler. Remember the app Parler? And it ended up being it was a conservative-sided app, right? It was right after Trump got banned on Twitter, I believe. We all went to Parler and all that stuff. And Amazon, maybe App Coder, by his name, he probably knows way more about this, that Amazon was able to own the domains that they were using. Is it the domains? Is that the right word I'm thinking of? But basically, they had control and were able to keep that site shut down. That's where you get the monopoly powers at. That's illegal for one. I don't know how this is getting into my area, but I still don't know what the actual percentage of the market share you have to own before they start considering you a monopoly. I know you also have to be doing things like buying the smaller companies up. He says they have AWS that controls ICANN. Now you're starting to use acronyms that I do not know. Any one of you guys know this, Jester? Maybe this, but I do understand what you're saying though, App Coder. Oh, Amazon Web Services. There you go. And when they can control what's going on the internet and they don't allow anything to pop up, like if Facebook and Amazon were conspiring with each other to keep Parler from gaining traction, that's a major problem.
Yeah.
Because you're crushing competition. And that's actually extremely bad for the economy as well. It may not seem like it because, just little Parler, got kicked off. No, but it didn't make a difference in anyone's life. But that becomes a major problem because they start doing it with everything. And then they start having full control over what information's put out. Think about this. YouTube deleted that documentary, Ukraine on Fire, which is a great, the antitrust monopoly laws. Yes, the Sherman antitrust laws, Jay Ritchie, that's what I'm referring to. Ukraine on Fire by Oliver Stone, and Oliver Stone is a Vietnam veteran. I think he's even said it. He's not a political guy. He's a neutral guy. He just likes telling the stories. And he goes and he does extensive research. He did it with the Edward Snowden movie, and he went and when he did Ukraine on Fire, he went all the way back, a couple hundred years, stated Ukraine's history, and did an in-depth documentary on the Maidan riots that kicked off the whole civil war and everything going on. He had Putin that he interviewed extensively and spent weeks with, or it may have been a week. He interviewed Putin when Putin was driving him around. Like, they were with each other the whole time, because he says his whole goal is to try and get to know these people when he interviews them. And he put all that together and made a great documentary that I think everyone should watch, because it would give everyone a great understanding of what's going on here. But they deleted that because they want people to side with Ukraine. Honestly, look, I hope Ukraine kicks Russia's ass. I do. But that doesn't mean that, and I watched that documentary, I still think that Russia had justification on everything leading up as to why they would want to go into Ukraine. That doesn't mean I don't side with Ukraine now that Russia made the decision. Right? That doesn't mean anything. It didn't change my mind, but people should be aware of everything. People should be aware of United States policy leading up into this invasion that charged this thing to happen. Like, if you listen to Republican or Democrat, anyone that has spent sufficient time in that area dealing with those policies, and you come back and you listen to them say, whose fault is this? They all say the United States and NATO are the primary reason why we are where we are. but we completely
Don't
disenfranchised
forget
Russia's.
to throw the UN. Don't
Yeah,
forget
well,
to throw the
I
UN
count
in
all
there.
them. UN, all them. EU, all them. They're all a part because it's
UN's only in the United States because it's the only place they can find safe haven.
Which is a joke
Nobody
to
else
me.
wants them in their country.
Which is a joke to me. The fact that we're a part of the UN. That's like what was the League of Nations? Remember with World War I?
Yeah.
We didn't even enter that. We set that up, but our president was like, we're not fucking getting to that.
Well, Wilson set it up, and Wilson's the one that got us cracked into the daggone World War One.
Yeah, but we still didn't enter that treaty, which was smart.
He's
We
also
shouldn't have been
the one
involved.
that signed. He's also the one that signed in the Fed too.
Yeah. And rumor has it, and I don't. Maybe Raccoon has looked into this. Maybe Shannon knows. I don't know. That when they sank the ship that got us involved in that deal, that it was sank on purpose to get us involved in that deal, because we didn't enter World War I till the last year. Good.
I said the Are you talking about the Lusitania?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of information out there that says that was sank on purpose to get the United States involved in World War One.
Why don't you do a deep dive into the Titanic and find out who was on there? That
was it JP Morgan or someone was? JP Morgan and them were, right? Or they weren't on it. They were supposed to be.
Four bankers and rich people from the United States were the only ones who didn't take and stay back. The ones that did stay back were the ones that signed on Jekyll Island, the new reserve. The Federal Reserve was signed by those three bankers who controlled the banks. Because John Astor was one of the guys who sank on the Titanic. Those guys who got killed on the Titanic didn't know what was going on, but they were strictly against even forming or talking anymore about the Federal Reserve. So the guys who were supposed to also be on there decided we're going to wait for the next ship. And of course, the Titanic fell. But when you look at the undersea pictures of the Titanic, when you hit an iceberg, it usually pushes the steel inward, not outward.
Edmund Chung, Coder says.
Is that another conspiracy? It's already been shown. It's
Well,
already been talked about. And the Titanic that sank was not the original Titanic. It was a sister ship that actually ran into another ship and gouged itself out. So they went and repaired it, renamed it, and sent it out because they needed the insurance money for that one to be renamed the Titanic. And the Titanic was renamed for its sister ship and made 4 more cruises across the ocean. But that was all a big insurance scam and was also a big cover-up with it. And we all know it is a love story.
Who owned the ship?
You really want to know?
Yeah, who owned it?
J.P. Morgan.
Well, he didn't have insurance because it was unsinkable. Duh.
Well, no. What Raccoon's referring to is there was another ship that was damaged. They filed the insurance claim, couldn't get it, and that's where this theory arose from.
Both of the ships. Both of the ships were identical. They were sister ships to each other by the same design. However, what they did was they took the Titanic crested material off of the Titanic and put it on the other ship, renamed that ship, and then renamed the Titanic for that ship that they added the name to, became that ship. So they switched all their hard goods, and the boats were still on for sailing. The new Titanic went out, and J.P. Morgan said, we got to get it out there because we can't afford to keep fixing it. Sent the damn thing out there, and it blew up. It's like it may have been a boiler because that's about where it hit.
After it says, look at all the ships with billions of cocaine on board owned by JP Morgan. I wouldn't doubt that now. Just like
The CIA is the biggest drug running organization in the world because they're actually guarding the shit.
Well, that's another thing that bothers me.
Involved in it.
And just bringing that up too, because I've talked about this a lot with the whole drug thing, right?
Yeah.
If it was up to me, we'd invade fucking Mexico. Go ahead.
The ship that went down was the Olympia.
Mm-hmm.
The Britannia, the Olympia, and the Titanic were the three sister ships. And the Olympia is the one that got screwed up on the test run. So they changed it, patched it up, and then sent it out with passengers, knowing it was going to go down.
The drug thing though. That's what because I can't stand this drug thing. And if you think about it, they talk about how racist Trump was, right? Think about this. I think Obama was the one that deported like more Mexicans than any other president, right? But they talk about how racist Trump is for the southern borders things and all that stuff. But with all the drugs coming across, they showed the statistics today, and I went and looked at them. We'd have an over 100% increase already this year on how many people cross the border. Whether you like Trump or not, it's a problem. It's not. Let's just say it's not a Trump thing. It's a fucking security thing. You have to know who's coming in.
Those people are coming up here with the promise that they'll be given everything they're going to need. It's like I told F1 one night. I said, if you get tired of New Zealand, just fly to Mexico and let me know when you get there. I'll run down to El Paso, I'll pick you up, and I'll be your sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
I said, just look at all the free shit they're going to give you.
I mean, but look, there's 96,000 drug overdoses, not the people that survive either, deaths from drugs every year that we know of. And 70% of them are due to fentanyl. Okay?
Yep.
And why are we not having an all-out war and focusing on tracking all of that and trying to help that
Mike.
And cracking down on these doctors that are prescribing this medication and getting these people hooked on this stuff? Like, that's the stuff that we need to do.
Mike, that's why we established the department. The DEA, Drug Enforcement Administration. They've been fighting that war since late 60s, 67, 68, 69, somewhere around there. And they haven't had one, hey, we're winning the battle, guys.
Mm-hmm.
I know, because I had a little bit of time with those assholes. They're not worried about that. It makes them money because why? When they bust a damn dealer down there that doesn't want to play anymore, they take his money, which is in the millions or more. And they still get the drugs in the United States. They just hand it off somebody else. They pick this shit in there at such and such a place, make sure it gets in. The DEA hasn't done a damn thing for the war on drugs for the last 50 years.
So, Abcoder says something.
Win, lose, or draw.
So, Abcoder's right partially with the drugs. Because there are people that start doing drugs, right, and they get hooked on them, and I get it. What I'm
pharmaceuticals.
What I'm more getting at is the ones like, let's say, like I've had people in my family, one very close to me, right, and some of my friends that had a severe accident and an injury, and the doctors gave them, and one of them was right when OxyContin came out, and they said, we have this new pill that will make you feel great, and it's not addictive, and that's what they told him, and they go and they get hooked, and these people are freaking hooked, and these doctors give them these pain medicine for nothing. Oh, you get a little backache, and you go in there, and they've cracked down on it, yeah, but it's still a big problem. And then what do they do when they can't get the opiums anymore from the doctor? They go and they have to find it on the street. That's where it's not those people's fault. because that is a serious addiction, and it's the doctor's fault for even prescribing that shit the way they do it. And honestly, like I said, they've cracked down on a lot of this stuff, but going back, further, like, when these doctors were prescribing it at will and some of them were making money, honestly, I think they should be on hook for a lot of the people that have overdosed on opiates outside of their care. That because they got them hooked on it.
Most of those doctors, Mike, are told that's what you're going to prescribe while you're working in my clinic or hospital. They get told, the controllers get told by the controllers at the medical institute saying, okay, this is the new drug you're going to be putting out to your people. And the drug dealers are going to come in there. I call them drug dealers, but they're manufacturer representatives come in and have a doctor fair once or twice a year, sometimes more. And they say, this is the newest drug. This is how you take it. And it replaces this, and this, or whatever. Okay? What they're doing is they're running a timeout on a certain item. It makes something stronger to replace that item or those items because the goddamn patent on the name is coming up and they can't control the damn thing once it loses it. Like, remember what Motrin used to be? Motrin. Now Aleve and all kinds of different names for it now because after 10 years, it had to go on the open market for everybody to make it. So generics came out. And that's what they do. They sit there and they pump it in there. They get some, oh, yeah, this is just like that, only it's a little bit stronger. It's a better tweak, whatever. Pass it out there, and you'll be given gifts and shit. You'll get a little extra on your paycheck when you prescribe this much. The doctor is given a limit of how little he can give it out.
And Abcoder's brought up another good point too about teaching people to not to be kind and not live in debt. I talk about this all the time. Oh, Woody Bush, call back in. I'm sorry I missed that. I talk about that all the time on my show too. I 100% agree. We need to teach finance from a very young age and economics, all that stuff. I'm 100% agree with you. And Woody Bush, call back in. But going back to, no one's shoving it down, your mouth, the medicine, you're supposed to be able to go to your doctor and, okay, like Solid Blue Sister says, but also do your due diligence on your doctor. Yes, so I'll give you an example, and thank God I haven't had the run-in with the opiates, right? But I told John earlier when he was asking about my Tourette's on his show, he asked what medication I had taken for it. And I told him about the last one I ever took for it and what it did. Now, the doctor I was with, I trust with my life. He is awesome, okay? And I had been with him for years. And he suggested I took this medication and didn't say that he's like, oh, yeah, you'll be fine. It won't do nothing. Completely. And he was our team doctor for the football team. And he didn't acknowledge the fact that this medication was going to have a very bad effect on me when I was working out. And this is someone I work very closely with, right? Now, like I said, I still trust him, but it's like when you build that relationship with that doctor, because a lot of times those are the ones that are prescribing this stuff to you. And, someone like I said, who was in my family who had this major accident and he's in severe pain, and they come out and say, hey, you can go play with your kids again, and take this pain medicine. It'll help you feel better, and it's not addictive.
And it's not addictive.
Yes, and they're hooked. In Class 1 Pro, no, I didn't gain weight, but I was like almost passing out in the workouts from overheating. Like my body couldn't. I would start sweating and fatigue so fast. And it went from literally overnight to where I was going and having no problems in workouts to the 2 days after I started taking that medicine. It was like night and day. And so, there's a lot more to it. And so I see both sides. I see, okay, this person got into marijuana. He started, snorting cocaine. He started shooting up heroin.
Those
I get
two
that.
things had nothing to do with each other.
Yeah, they're different. Because like I said, 70% of these fentanyl of the drug overdoses that are in deaths are due to fentanyl. And a lot of these people that are overdosing on fentanyl, I've had 4 friends in the past 2 years die from fentanyl overdoses. Every single one of them was prescribed pain medication, and they were all in college playing sports too, by the doctor after they had surgery, and they got hooked on it, and then they couldn't get over that addiction. They were out, trying to fill that void. It's
the doctor that started me on OxyContin when I was 22 was my neighbor.
I was on OxyContin for 10 years before the doctor, my surgeon said, you need to get off of this. And I haven't taken it since.
I was on it for 4 years, and I went to the doctor because I wanted off of it. They had me on so much they didn't know what the fuck to do with me.
I'd taking 10 milligrams 3 times a day, man.
Man, I was taking 6 80 milligram OxyContins a day. Plus, I was getting 12 Percocets a day and a handful of Valium to sleep by the end of it. And it took them a week of medical bullshit, and it was the worst fucking thing I've ever been through in my life. But I was in pain, and like I said, she saw that and was trying to help me not be in pain. And that's not those drugs aren't an option for chronic pain unless it's like you're gonna die basically.
And as conservative as I am, okay, and everyone knows I am, there are definitely safe alternatives like marijuana that could easily be replaced with, I don't want to say easily, but to an extent, right? I've never had like severe pain, okay? But, there's a lot of severe pain that could easily be helped out by using marijuana, not CBD, not the stuff you buy here in, Tennessee. I'm talking about marijuana, right? That would help that even if you were addicted to it, it won't kill you at least, right? Like that's the kind of stuff like that could be replaced. Go ahead.
Actually, marijuana is less addictive than anything else because
I know. I'm just saying it's not the addiction thing. It's still not killing you though.
Once you have to start doing something over and over again, as far as working and stuff like that, shit, you forget about it more than anything else, and maybe it becomes a weekend thing like beer. Yeah. But here's the thing: it kills the whole scenario that they have set up in the medical field. John D. Rockefeller told the graduating class for the first daggone doctors who became the new modern medicine, remember, all home remedies are quackery. And if you can't push these drugs and use these guidelines, you cannot be a doctor. And to make that even clearer is, why spend 50 cents to cure something when we can charge them for the rest of their life?
Same as cancer treatments.
Yeah.
I take a natural supplement now. It's called Kratom, and it's something that helps me function and not rely on pain meds. But they're trying to get it illegal, like make it illegal, because again, like you said, they're not making money on it, and the number of people that it has helped get off of opiates and still live a functioning life, it's sad.
Well, the controllers don't want you to be on something if they can't control it, make a buck off of it. And if you're an independent person and you are, say an off-gridder. If you're an off-gridder, what the hell do they hate more than anything else? The fact that you don't rely on them for anything. I mean, they don't like it when they can't. If you can't rely on the doctors for all your whims and wishes, then what do you do?
Yeah. like Abcoder says, you know, why do we always blame someone else? Look, I am, and Abcoder's been here a few times, I think, but I'm not one of those people that is like, you know, oh, we need to feel sorry for people, blah, blah, blah. There's very few things that I go down that route with. When it comes to the pain, though, and someone who has serious accidents, right, or illnesses, and they're in so much pain, the doctor says, here, take this, because I know how the people in my family, the person in my family was affected by this, right, and I know why he took it, and I know what it did for him, and I know what he lives with now. You know, it's like one of those things. It's like, it's not really, there's not any alternatives, really. You know, it's, I can lay on the couch and be so miserable all day, or I can do what the doctor said, take this, and I can go play with my kids. You know?
Instantly.
Yeah, and enjoy that after being laid up for 6 months.
Superhero.
Yeah, like you've been in the hospital for 6 months, right? You're finally out of the hospital. You're in so much pain. You can lay down all day, or you can take this pill that the doctor said isn't addictive, and it's a new great pill. You're going to feel great. You go out, play with your kids, and feel normal. And, you know, within a week, you're hooked, and you're wanting more and more and more and more and more. And the doctor's still prescribing it at will, saying, oh, yeah, nothing's wrong with it, at will. And you think nothing's wrong with it at will, and you don't know anything's wrong with it because he keeps giving it to you, and you've never missed a day.
They were making a bundle off of that bottle, man.
Yeah.
Well, after watching the documentary on it, it's just sickening the way that they pushed that and the shit they got away with and the lives it ruined.
So, you know, like I said, when it like the whole crack thing, you know, with Biden sending the pipes out or the syringes out, I don't think he should have done that. Why? Because I think you're pushing him to do it, right? What's up, Ashton? I think that if you catch someone, I'm not talking about someone selling opioids. I'm talking about someone shooting opioids up or doing a drug. Instead of taking him to jail, take him to rehab. We're going to pay the same amount for him in jail than we would in rehab. Let's do that. That's not a very conservative thing for me to say, maybe.
No,
but it's a realistic thing to say.
To get into a decent rehab, you've got to have $20,000 to $40,000, and in the state that an addict is in when they need to go to rehab, how the fuck is somebody supposed to come?
Well, what I'm saying is, though, we're going to pay that same amount of money for them when they're in jail to feed them and house them.
Totally. No, I completely.
So all you're doing is it's a trade-off. Why don't we look at the cost analysis there? That's all I'm saying. You know, I'm not saying spend more money. I'm saying just reallocate money.
Yeah, use it in a more productive manner.
Yeah, help the people. That's all I'm getting at. You want to do prison reform? How many people are in prison because they got caught with a little bit of crack cocaine on them or a little bit of heroin on them that they were going to go shoot up themselves? They weren't selling it. Now, selling it's different. If you're selling it to people, you're actually being fucking jail. But the people that were hooked on it, right? Take them to rehab. You're going to spend you could probably operate the privatized rehab facilities like you could the privatized prisons and pay the same amount as you would to house them in a prison as you could to go send them to rehab for the same amount of time. You know? It's just something to look at if you're going to do that. This is my opinion, okay? So that's kind of like where I stand on that whole thing. Sell it and just pay the taxes. Don't go to jail, then get a tax bill. You're talking about, like, if you're selling the drugs. If you're selling marijuana, I'm fine with that. When you're selling the opioids, though, because the opioids literally kill people. Like, that's different, right? There are certain drugs that we could talk about the legality of it and do that and tax it. But the opioid one, though, for sure, send them to jail. Don't tax it. Just send their ass to jail. The IRS estimates earnings. I did not know that, though, Avcoder, that they did that. So you're saying they go to jail, they send these people to jail, and then they tax them afterwards on the projected earnings? Is that on the projected earnings of what they collected on that person? Or what they think they've been doing beforehand? Like, I wonder how they calculate that, because I was not aware of that. That's interesting. I have to go read about that. That is interesting. And I'd hate to be the one that's caught with, like, you know, pounds of that stuff and having to go pay that tax bill before you sold it. So Eric says we got the 2-minute warning. I'm open to starting another show, but I'm going to cut the Facebook feed off. I appreciate people listening on Facebook. And for those of you guys that want to come back, I'll start another show. Just give me about 5 minutes, and we can continue this conversation because I think it's a good talk. It's an interesting one. So thank you guys.